sense sphere. You must listen to our demands.
Yes, the rescue mission. Wow, what a packed show we've got tonight. And it's all thanks to you. You've been sending in so many suggestions, so many ideas, so many gripes. So I'm going to get over this as fast as we can. Well, we've had time to ponder, time to absorb the ratings, the reviews, and consider where we felt the season with Shooty, led by RTD, went. Getting over the disappointment, the ache and anticlimax, the abuse from the people in the show and running the show, hearing the excuses and the gaslighting. Now we can focus on what we, the diehard, the loyal, the informed, the knowledgeable fans, think is the problem with current Doctor Who, and whether we think we can salvage it. I know we all wish RTD did not return. That's quite patently obvious. I know we want possibly rid of Disney. I know we see some of the messaging as the problem. But how can we save the show in a narrative sense? Some people say start from 2017 and Capaldi regenerating. But cancelling a period of Doctor Who in such a way still needs narrative credibility, I feel. And I think once you've set the precedent to do it once, the risk and the jeopardy is in the future you might invest all your kind of love and interest in the series, and then somebody does it again because they've done it once. That's the problem. So join us tonight. I have loads of your ideas, suggestions, formulas. We have master plans to compete with Andrew Cartmell's. And talking of Cartmell, could his master plan, if we looked at it again, save the series if it was updated now? So much to talk about, and it's time we started. We will cover loads tonight, and then this may become a mini series, so each area can be addressed, explored, and resolved properly. So let's enjoy tonight. Buckle in, get that thread on fire, get your ideas in fast. Tell us what you think. I'm going to be asking you a question in a few moments, so get ready. If RTD is watching, and I hope he is, any ideas are our copyright, and no one from Bad Wolf or Disney has any permission to use these ideas. This was said on July the 7th, 2024. You know where we are. Give us a DM, RTD. So let's get going. Let's get the panel on. Gary, good to see you. Let's just let me get my buttons right. Hiya, Gary.
Hello.
Good morning. I hope you're fired up for this.
Oh, I've had my thinking cap on, and it's been working overtime.
I tell you what, I've had a really good day, actually, trying to get everyone's ideas on screen. There's so many. Hello, Michelle, also from across the pond. Have you got plenty of ideas to save this series?
Yes, I do.
Well, that's what we want to hear. Rachel, you've only got 3 pages worth. I mean, people will see your pages tonight. Well, it's actually 4 So you'll hear from Rachel, chat about it. Queen of the Walk, of course.
Royalty.
Of course. And Hugh, he's back from Paris. We've only got him.
Bonjour. Madame, monsieur.
We've got to make the most of him because he's going to be gallivanting. He's a globetrotter, is this one. So, Hugh, I'm sure you've got plenty of ideas. I'm sure you've got plenty of observations.
I will try and resist pulling out my black cap again.
And we've got Mike again, 2 in 1 week. Hello, good to see you.
Hello, sir. How are you doing?
Oh, God, that weather looks very nice. I don't know whether that's green screen, but it looks very nice.
No, it's real, but it's a bit dodgy. So I might have to go back inside if it's a bit dodgy, but we'll stick with it for a while.
You're doing all right. You're doing better than we are. Oh, well, that's good. That's good. Oh, well, the thread is already on fire. So I've promised the earth, so I better get going. This is not about me. This is about your ideas, everybody. And this is about us salvaging the show. So without much further ado, let us get this going. So it's about salvaging Doctor Who and looking at the size of the problem.
Can I just say, Brendan, mega kudos for your choice of pictures in this thumbnail.
Yes.
It was noted. The mind robber went down
Thank
well.
you
I
so
kind of
much.
guessed it would.
A little something for the dads.
Yes.
Well, as is always ever thus. But yes, I mean, it's a damn good shot, the mind robber, isn't it? So I was trying to find a Troughton shot as well, but anyway.
Can't wait to see that in Blu-ray.
In 3D. Right.
There you go.
So, right, okay then. I've had so many people writing in. There's the main offenders. I don't think anyone will be surprised by the main offenders, but we'll look at how offensive each one is, how damaging each one is, and therefore what we can do to actually erase that damage. So I don't think there's anything there that's going to shock you. You've got the timeless child, by generation, the crying or emotional or very different Doctor, Gallifrey, the Cyber Masters, or are these the main offenders really?
Sounds like a TV show, doesn't it?
Yeah. A mini series. They seem to be trendy, Rachel, at the moment.
Very.
Let's see devil onto them. So my first question to the panel and to the thread, and it's all yes or no in the thread. So let's get a count going. Right. Knowing that those that have been running the show and knowing that quotation at the top there, let me just show you before we get going. RTD and I think some Empire of Death video commentary or something. Just, it's all going to be about gravity, and wait for season 3, darling. Talking to Bonnie Lanford, which isn't commissioned as yet. We're going to let rip. It's all building somewhere, okay? So he's really excited. So therefore, we really need to get this sorted out. And then, of course, I've got a clip from the bottom from one of my saloon shows. It's from May, actually, when Media Mole and lots of organizations were saying, when will this season 3 possibly be commissioned? And of course, they said Disney will probably make a decision early next year. I know people have said it may be now, but that's what the rumor was there. So knowing that, folks, I'm going to go down the panel, yes or no. Do you think season 3 will be commissioned, Mike?
I would be surprised if it was commissioned after the way it's been going. I really think they've got to really seriously reevaluate the whole thing after, and of course the second season, which has already been filmed, means that they can't do any course correction. So I'm a bit dubious at this point. Let's just put it that way.
Okay, so you're edging towards no.
Yeah, at the moment, yeah.
Okay, Michelle?
No. And I was the most hopeful for this error. No, I don't think there's going to be a season 3. Not after the season finale of last 2 weeks ago. Absolutely not.
And you know Disney well. I mean, Disney likes money as well, and the poor money after good money after bad, it seems sometimes. So far, I've got 2 no's in the thread. Yes or no? Will there be a season 3? Hugh, what do you reckon?
I think there will be something, but I don't think it'll be a season. So I think they'll do a couple of specials to avoid looking as if they're completely out. But I think that then it will come to an end, because I think it's going to be one of those things where, if season 2 is already finished, they'll try and get a bit more out of it by having a show that ties it up a bit.
Now, Melanie Weston investigates. I know another stream, one of our friendly other streams who I know well, did say it's been commissioned, but we haven't heard anything. And you know what the media's like, Melanie Weston investigates. They normally announce it quite fast. So I know, and Sir Sydney's saying the same thing. I've got no problem because I like that other channel. But why have we heard nothing? So I'm just saying we've heard nothing yet. Rachel, what do you reckon?
Well, I'm in 2 minds. I reckon the BBC won't want it. I reckon the Disney, so long as it meets their certain agenda, they will want it. Yeah, that's a hard question. I reckon they'll probably try and release something after the second series, Whether or not it's a complete series or not, I don't know. So I'm kind of with Hugh on that one. And then they'll be out after that, I reckon.
Right. Gary?
I'm going to kind of do the inverse of what Rachel just said. I actually think that if there is a season 3, I think, as Hugh said, I think it's going to be 3 or 4 specials, but I think Disney's out after this 26 episodes, which includes the Land and Sea spinoff. That was, those 5 episodes were part of the initial 26. I think they're out after this. So I think that if there is a season 3, like 3 or 4 specials, it's just going to be like a cheap BBC production.
Well, and it's a mixed thread. I'm trying to list a few. So, for example, Catherine Reed, hellos, no, fingers crossed. Matt Day, no. David Mullen, there'll be series 3. The BBC won't ever let Gatwa and Co be seen as a failure, never. I better sail my colours to the mast. I have said in a few saloons now, I just think it'll drive down the price. Disney will either come in cheaper with more control, or as you're saying, it'll be kept in-house, because the BBC know there's a merchandise machine there. It's just they haven't got it right yet. It could be shorter, as Hugh and Rachel are indicating. It might be, face-saving job. I do think there'll be something.
Oh, Brendan, I will actually agree with that. I think Disney will have, and I've said it in my videos as well, Disney will have a lot more control. Yeah.
So, that's where
I guess one last thing. I think it also depends on the metric that Disney uses to define success. I mean, they keep pushing crud like the Acolyte out because you have, Kathleen Kennedy and them are the force behind it. With Who, it's basically just kind of a distribution airing agreement. So I think if however they crunch the numbers, they have to justify putting more money in, more than just on an ideological point.
Fellows, if Acolyte gets season 2, there'll be a season 3 of Disney Who. Heather, Disney still wastes tons of money on Star Wars. I don't see why they wouldn't waste money on failing Doctor Who. There is that idea that these massive streaming platforms will waste a lot of money because they need to fill their schedules. That's all they need to do, is just fill their streams. They don't care whether it's crud or not. Divine and Dragon, go on, what's that?
Also, the more failures they get, the more tax breaks they get too.
I'd rather the second Gatwa series be dumped in January to wrap and then rest it. I know, it's just that I think it does the face-saving mechanism. Right, okay, let's get going. We're going to try and salvage Doctor Who. You can't salvage anything without identifying the size of the problem first. So let's address that and be brave. Braveheart Tegan, here we go. Yes, if RTD is watching, scary music as well. The magnitude of the problem. Right, okay. Now, the first few slides, I just want panel feedback. The panel are on some of the slides, so it's easy enough to do, but Hugh and Mike do dive in there. But basically, we asked the viewers, and a lot of them are sat in the thread now, what their thought was the magnitude of the problem. And so I'm going to give you a quick précis of some of them. Okay, so if you don't mind, I'll just rattle through some of them. So we've got one there: poor storytelling, poor script writing, move the Doctor away from the true hero of protagonist. Ian, on the other side, the 8th Doctor wakes up in the TARDIS to find that the future was all just a dream. He's hoping for that one. So you've got people giving resolutions, people giving problems. Gary, you might as well mention yours. This is part of Gary here, so you might as well reference it yourself.
Oh, I broke it down, and one of my points to look at is fixing the perception of the show, not just the content, the perception. And I said, fixing the show in the eyes of the public fans, I said, I don't think another reboot would work after RTD2, which was effectively a soft reboot. I said, but it's got to be rested. Just booting RTD and Shooty out, both of which I believe absolutely have to happen as part of this, isn't enough, because right now the perception is it's poison fruit right now. In the eyes of the public are not interested. I don't care how much they wave the magic wand over the numbers, and the fans have written it off. So,
I think it's the age dynamic that's the problem now. They've changed it to a younger audience where it should be accessible to everybody. And so, and we've already spoken about this before many times, that the long-term fan base is being alienated because they're not aiming specifically for us anymore. And that's a big damaging factor. People are going to think, well, what am I watching? This isn't the show I used to know. And hence, that is a major problem.
The big disconnect. And here, Michelle, you might as well address one of your issues early doors, just to get everybody warmed up.
Yeah, Sack RTD. At this point, I think he has shown us that he does not have the capacity to be a show producer, runner, whatever you want to call it, for Doctor Who. He has not shown any fresh new ideas in this last season. In fact, it's been a retread of his glory days.
And I will say this: if you've seen any of our reviews or you've just joined us tonight, viewers, Michelle has been a pretty staunch defender, really. You're very fair, and you have actually been, given, a chance to this era. I tried to give it a chance, but if you see me from Space Babies to Empire of Death, I go on quite a journey and get more and more angry. But Michelle, that's a shock when it came from you to see that, actually.
Well, that was a shock what I sat through for Empire of Death when when I'm getting to the end of it, I'm thinking about it, and it's like we've gone on this ride where they promised that something was going to be revealed, and when I joked that they're going to wad up a piece of paper and slap Sutek on the nose like a bad boy, like a bad dog, and then practically they killed him by taking him for a walkie.
Yeah. Well, Rachael, as you can see, is very concise. She's very diligent. I know you're not going to read all that out, but people can see Rachel's got a lot of things here. She's also trying to put, she suggested some of the showrunners should be in jail.
Yeah,
Yes.
Doctor Who jail. 227 years between them, they've got, all three of them.
No parole.
No parole. No, absolutely not.
Do you want to just point out one or two things for our viewers, what you found problematic?
Problematic. Well, my biggest one is the Timeless Child, but I can do that one later if you'd like me to.
Yes, I've got a whole section on Timeless Child.
Yeah,
And
I thought you would. Wait, what am I going to do? Back in Chibnall. Back in Chibnall, and the idea of everything that he has created so far. Yeah, that's just a big offence altogether. And gender swapping Missy, Master for Missy. It all really started there. And the instigator.
And you have got it there, by the way, as one of your bullet points, the Schalke doctor. And did you notice that article recently where he said, "Oh, it's just a laugh"?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. I'm going to address that in tomorrow's video. But yes. It's just a laugh. Is it? Why do you include it then? It's not a joke. I don't find
well, because I think that's when I saw that, I thought that's a perfect example of RTD's attitude toward the show and the canon and the characters now. If he can backpat his buddy, Paul Cornell, and saying, "Hey, it's just for fun. It's just a joke. It's funny." That's all that's important to him is his own self-gratification, as I've said about a million times.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll just address what Divine and Dragon said. He loves Divine and Dragon loves my layout. Yes, I handwrite it all because I have dyscalculia, so it all gets funny and jumbled up on the screen if I type it. So I handwrite it and then photograph it to Brendan.
And
he
it's
has
really
to read that every week.
I took a screenshot of that so I could read it later.
And the truth is, Divine and Dragon, as a teacher, I'm just collating all this. It's really helpful that everybody either sends in typed versions and I take it all in. So I roughly know where.
Very nice handwriting. That's not easy to do log print. That's very nice handwriting.
Thank you.
There you go. So, of course, she's Rachel. Me and Rachel are funny. We have different streams, different days, and sometimes our topics kind of vice versa. So she's getting in tomorrow, little devil. On go and say it again. You're talking about tomorrow the Schalke.
The Schalke. I wrote Sharda there, I think, didn't I? But the Schalke doctor, yes, and how it was a joke.
So I'll do the Schalke Doctor stream in 5 years' time, and then there's a buffer zone.
You can do it if you want to. Yeah, I don't mind.
Oh gosh, anyway, so here we go. So anyway, over the Overseer, who I did see in the thread, so be polite, everyone. No, these are just these are just overviews so far. So let me just kind of tidy things up. So pretty much everything. We can blame apathetic BBC scheduling, low quality scripts, forced messaging, and they're all valid contributing factors. But whatever the reasons, the fact is that this Doctor's become a shadow of its former self and is in urgent need of regeneration. So how can we possibly course correct the shambolic mess that is Doctor Who in 2024? Should we get tangled up in narrative cat's cradles, trying to unweave and blah, 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 and talking about Sutek's colossal poo bags? No, no, no. The first is to keep things linear and look to gradually repair the damage once Russell and Ncuti have left the series. The other is to wipe the slate clean and start afresh. Now, Over the Overseas got plenty more to say, but this is just an overview to give you a taste of what our viewers are saying. This one, I'm not reading it all out. Don't worry, John Sheridan, but they've gone for the jokes. They're angry about being let down by the finale. So, for example, the second paragraph, why did RTD not make Ruby a Norse goddess? Namely her parents giving her the power of winter, and then have Ruby defeat Sutek. Why don't you do something that fits with your pantheon or something? Sutek is killed by a dog catcher. What the heck is going on? Sutek should have been, and it just goes on and on, but I'll leave that there for a second. And then in the last paragraph, Sutek should have been brought back in the classical fashion, namely some devoted Egyptian priest using magic to summon his power, blah, blah, blah. So you can see people are angry about various things. Here we've got Pebble Pot, nice, interesting little name. I would like to go back to the TARDIS materializing.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Oh, I hate the way they've been doing it this year. It's just, what the hell is that all about? It's because crushing in. You don't have that. That's not what it's about.
Yeah.
They're trying to marvelize
thing,
it,
isn't it?
Yeah. So we've got that, and then our friend she's always there, Melanie Weston Investigates. Again, I won't read them out. I'll show them there for a second. If you want to shout out any of them, Melanie just give us a list of 20 things. There you go. Concise and clear there. Bring back Millie Gibson as Ruby is one of them. Make the episodes longer. We have a section on that today about the show structure. 18, do less episodes on Earth, more space and time, please. Monsters back, so we've got an awful lot of ideas coming here, folks. Might get the panel thinking.
The thing that I sort of miss is the idea of ambiguity. And I think up till now we've generally had an ambiguous Doctor, at least in the sense of whether they're always right or whatever. This is because Ncuti is now just Russell's puppet, and the Doctor is Russell's puppet, and there is no ambiguity in it. There's a lot of weakness, but no ambiguity.
And the thread, Gary's going to help me and keep an eye on the thread for me for any great stuff coming out there.
They're coming too fast. All these great ideas in the thread, they're just one after the other after the other.
I might scour back in a moment. I'll just get past this first bit to show that I am actually collating what people are sending us. Shemp S. Shempington, there you go. Basically is saying, will you rest the show for about 5 or so years? Reboot the whole thing from scratch with a new first Doctor.
No,
that's not going to work.
I'll let him explain himself, but far too much nonsense is now being bolted onto the show like the timeless child crap. Cast a well-known lead actor who already has a lot of public goodwill behind them. It would create a lot of much needed publicity. So basically, you can see there the argument is rest it and actually start from scratch.
I don't think you can do that. Because you'd have a hue and cry about from people saying that's disrespecting all of the actors who created the legacy over 60 years. So you're going to have that contingent. You're going to have the contingent of if you're creative enough to bring the show back, but you have to default to a reboot, why aren't you creative enough to create an explanation where you could just continue it on as part of it? I think there's too many minefields in trying to reboot it.
Or there are enough willing actors. I mean, you've got David Bradley, who does the first Doctor. You've got David Troughton, who probably would be happy to do his dad. You could do something where you bring back all of the old Doctors, so to speak.
Sean Pertwee as well as number 3 or something.
Sean Pertwee, John Pertwee. Would he do his dad though? I don't know.
I don't know. I think he's been asked before, and he said he wasn't going to do it. But if he got offered enough money, you never know.
You never know. So,
Yeah.
this is our roundup. I'm not reading all that out. Don't worry. It's the final paragraph where basically the argument made here by Moldwich is the Eighth Doctor amnesia approach that that they've already applied to a lot of the Eighth Doctor canon that's gone on in the BBC books, for example. And in the last paragraph there, take the essence of this approach with the current Doctor, but on a broader scale. Have him start a new series completely unable to remember who he is, blank slate. Over the course of the series, he slowly rediscovers himself. Better yet,
I like that. Yeah,
I'd be good with that. I'd be good with that.
Yeah.
Okay, so Muldwich, you're scoring big here. For me, it's
No,
not
I nearly suggested that just before you read it as well. So yeah, I think it's certainly something you could do, and that would be a knock that might work.
Yeah,
I think that's a good idea.
I mean, if he's knocked on the head, he might cry first. But once we've got over that, for me, it's not about the story of how it happened, but a means to an end. And I think we're trying to get away from all that Japanese knotweed of all the chaos of all the canon is wrapped up in canon, and it is a bit of a mess. So Muldridge, well done on that one. Just a continuation here for a second. I'll just show you. So it just frees us all up. The TARDIS is now free to just go across time and space. The Doctor's innate desire to fight injustice is back again. Jettison everything. The Time Lords, Unit, memories of his many victories of past villains, an obsession with T-shirts, the sonic remote control, a knowledge of modern slang. Get rid of everything.
Yeah.
That seems...
Make him an alien again.
Yes. Now, over the overseer. I think this is when everyone gets nervous. It's like when the teacher reads out your work in front of the class, so all the class can see over the overseer's work now. And over the overseer, I'm nearly done on the just... You mentioned the multiverse, but please go with over the overseer because they know that it's not popular, but they're trying to find a way through. So second paragraph, I'm not suggesting we erase the past few years at all. Everything from Capaldi regenerating to the current day can all stay canon, technically. But we start a brand new series in a completely different universe, one on the verge of obliteration. We ditch the fantasy and ramp up the hard sci-fi with an alternative version of the Time Lords from an alternate universe that needs to take drastic action. Their version of the Doctor has died trying to save them. Perhaps we could even get a Richard E. Grant cameo for a death scene. In desperation, these Time Lords find a way to scoop up the newly regenerated 16th Doctor and whisk them back away to their own universe. This would leave behind the 14th Doctor, blah, blah, blah. And then right at the bottom, this would effectively be a hard reboot for the program while having an excuse to get away from all the trappings of real world social politics and being tied on Earth. There you go.
That's very Rick and Morty.
Yeah.
Is that good or bad? Bad? Good?
It might just get confusing. That's all.
Okay. And then just as we're about to start discussing, don't worry, panel and everybody, Divine and Dragon, who's also sat in the thread there, as you know, is giving us some criteria on our discussion tonight. Are we going for hard reboots or a soft reboot? Are we going for continuation? Are we going for course correction? What are we going for tonight? And of course, I think we're going to get a lot of that in our discussion. And I'll come to the thread if I can in a moment. But my God, there's so much happening. I think you're going to have to start writing to us in the Gmail, Gary.
One thing, and I don't, I'm not trying to be an apologist for RTD. I think that when it comes to a reboot, I think we have to look at the TV movie versus the way that the 2005 series started. One of the problems with the TV movie, and don't get me wrong, I adore Paul McGann and most of that movie, is in the first 5 minutes was like a mythology info dump of you had the Doctor, you had the TARDIS, you had mention of the Daleks, you had the Master go after the trial, then he was taking him back to Gallifrey, and it was like, if you're a new viewer, it's like I'm 2 minutes in and I'm totally lost. But I think that taught valuable lessons for the 2005 reboot, which is the only thing you needed was the Doctor and the TARDIS. Everything else besides that was just filled in slowly. So I think that if you're going to do even a soft reboot, that's the way to go. You don't rely on everybody having this encyclopedic knowledge of having to remember 10 different things in order to make sense of any given episode.
Well, before we go into all these key areas in detail about which is the most damaging, and then start to address the solutions, I'm going to ask you all a question again, and ask the thread a question again. I never thought I'd get here, but I am slightly getting closer to the idea of a hard reboot. I've enjoyed as a fan 61 years of history, but it's become so entangled and messed up. I am starting to think, how much could I cope with if I started again with a new doctor who was maybe a first doctor? I don't know how you deal with it, because I don't want to insult William Hartnell. I really don't. So how do we do it? Do we just start again? They can revisit some of the old stories and just do them in a different way. Anyway, I'm going to ask the panel. I'm going to ask the thread. How far would you consider now a hard reboot? But Gary? No.
I don't think it, as a practicality, I don't think it works. I think you'd have, fans up in arms. I think that there's ways around it. And again, let me ask you, do you think even that could be done without a hiatus of however long? I think they can come back in a year with a
I personally think everything now needs a rest for a few years. Yeah. I think a lot of thinking for once needed, but I actually, thank God I'm not the showrunner, because I'm actively starting to think, could I live with a hard reboot? Because, like some of us are saying, like Jeremy used to be on this panel, and Jeremy says, look, I've got Classic Who, I can still watch that. And then all this damage that's getting done, I'll ignore it. Well, in a way, we could just say, right, we now lock and seal 61 years of Doctor Who, and now we start with canon again, sort of thing. I don't know. I'm just
let me ask you, Brendan, since you're in favor of the hard reboot,
getting closer.
What are the? Or you're getting close.
Yeah.
What are the 1 or 2 or 3? What were the 1 or 2 or 3 for you personally, like tipping points that kind of, in your mind, demand a hard reboot versus just like an explanation?
Because I think you've just said it with a TV movie in a way, which is, how do we untangle things without having to get down into 6, 7, 8 minutes or 2 episodes of exposition? It is, everything we don't like in Doctor Who is like fan fiction. Everything does sound like fan fiction because it's now getting over complex. And I think there's an element where you have to simplify it again. Now, some fans will say from 2017 end, that's a lot of Who we're getting rid of straight away, which I disagree with, because for lots of reasons, even if I don't like it. But then to unravel 7 years plus next season that's already written, 8 years of Doctor Who, to unravel it and to try and make amends, I think is a task that I don't think anyone can do.
One thing I'll say, and then I'll hand it back. You told me to watch out for comments.
Yeah.
John Yulden in the chat a while ago had this comment: before you get back into producing a reset, you need to create a production Bible that sets in place rules that cannot be broken going forward. Do you agree with that?
To a degree, I do. I've seen a few people. In fact, a few of the viewers have sent a version of that to me, so it's out there. It's almost like the Gene Roddenberry thing, but I think 61 years of who the hell's going to write that now? I mean, David Whittaker's no longer around, and David Whittaker, I think, tried to do a kind of version after the first year or two, but oh my God. I mean, would you really want that job now? 61 years, it would take you a few years to compile it. And actually, it doesn't make sense. I mean, Hugh, what do you reckon? I mean, I think if you did a Bible of Doctor Who, it would have so many inconsistencies in it.
Yeah, I mean, sort of like if you read this sort of like the attempts even to put a chronology around Who, it doesn't work. Never mind the rest of it. I think you can get away with less of an explanation. I think. I do like the idea of him losing his memory. I do like the idea of him being cut off. It's one of those things where you can rediscover things, and you only need to rediscover the things that are important. Yeah. I'm honestly not really that bothered about canon, but I think we've become obsessed with it. I just want to get back to Madman in a Box.
Yeah. We do feel like it feels like a long way away from that. Mike, hard reboot or not?
Well, it's funny, this one, because obviously when you get a new Doctor, in some ways it's almost like a reboot in its own way. It's a whole new character, even though it's based on chronology. And I remember obviously Star Trek trying to do the reboot with the Kelvin timeline in 2009, and that was obviously didn't go down with a lot of people. I think that other people said this. I like the idea of it continuing, but the Doctor loses his memory, and he's discovered, and maybe it's a point where he never fully remembers everything from before this reset. I like the idea of the mystery of himself. So so a reboot, in some ways, I really don't really want to ignore 61 years of canon, and it's a very interesting idea. I do think there's some the idea of it being completely right back to the beginning, but it's just been on for too long to do that. I don't think I could accept that. I don't know.
I know, and I'm going to come to Rachel and then Michelle. I mean, what do you reckon, Rachel? The thing was, I read about this, and some people were saying there's no other show around that's got this amount of canon and lore. So Doctor Who is really facing we're in the front line of all this kind of, how do you deal with something like this? Star Wars hasn't got 61 years to untangle itself.
No, it hasn't. But it's certainly the closest one to it that I can actually think of. Oh my God. I personally wouldn't be up for what was your question? Sorry?
Hard reboot or
okay.
not?
Sorry, I'm just on my own wavelength there. No, I wouldn't. Personally, I wouldn't go for a hard reboot, like start afresh, start again. I'd be more inclined to go for a course correction. Or the Doctor losing his memories, although I don't really like the idea of that either. It's a bit of a weird one. I think they kind of did it with Jodie Whittaker in order to bring in the Timeless Children. And I believe they did it with Paul McGann as well, didn't they? I can't remember. I haven't seen them film for ages. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think it would do for a hard reboot. I understand why you're saying it, though. I do. It's just...
Yeah. Well, somebody's got to have a clever idea. Maybe the one that was mentioned earlier. We need something to move it on and not get bogged down. Michelle, your thoughts?
I actually was thinking about this not too long ago, and the show needs a course correction. That's without a doubt. Unfortunately, I think this era was supposed to be a course correction, and it's not succeeding. I'm thinking, because again, Hollywood is not original in their ideas, that we are going to go into another wilderness period. How long it's going to last, who knows? But when it comes back, it probably will be a hard reboot. I think we were extremely lucky in 2005 that it wasn't. That's almost like lightning captured in a bottle. And again, because of the way the Hollywood thinks, and it almost as we have gone so far, and the canon has gone into so many different directions. We're almost in a time period that we almost do need a hard reboot. And will that be the same Who? Will it be any successful? Who knows? But I think we've almost gone so far gone that it will be a hard reboot, because that's also just how Hollywood thinks, and they're unimaginative.
One thing I just want to, as a follow-up to the whole idea about the memory loss, which now that it's in my head, I can't think of anything else. I kind of wish when Capaldi came in, when he said his first words were, "Can you tell me how to fly this thing?" I was so excited, because I thought that's an interesting way to go. Have the regeneration result in, like the Doctor's memory loss, where he slowly has to build back how to run the TARDIS, because there were even times during Troughton's era where, as you see him very hesitantly like touching the console, almost as if he was afraid to touch it at times, and because of what might happen. And of course they didn't do that, because then by the time Deep Breath showed up, Capaldi's memories had returned, and he was pretty much the standard of all the other Doctors. But I think that would be like an exciting way to go, where the Doctor isn't, where he's kind of learning about things as the audience does.
Well, obviously, I the method to my madness. I asked the big question. The thread seems to have frozen for a second, but we'll get on to it because I asked you all whether you wanted a hard reboot or not, and it seemed to froze at 24 minutes past. So we'll keep going. But since really the panel doesn't want a hard reboot, and I'm kind of glad to hear it, let's look at what we therefore do to deal with the continuity problems. Okay. Now, the main one, I'm sorry, it is the timeless children. That is the problem. The viewers, the people who've written to me, timeless children is still the thing that has to be rectified then. So we can't get around this, okay? We really will have to nail our colours to the mast and what we're going to do with this. Now, a lot of us here were on a panel a few months ago and we looked at the timeless children and please have a look because it's obviously a 2.5 hour chat there. Fresh look. Was the timeless children the end of Doctor Who? We asked. Now, Gary, you also sent as one of your kind of contributions something on the timeless children. Rachel obviously has as well. So we'll hear from you first, Gary, on yours.
I was trying to, when you were getting ideas from us, I tried to divide things out between what just needs to be explained and what needs to be scrapped. I think that I've always thought the timeless children, and this is why I don't put it down to Chris Chibnall. Everybody's saying, well, Chris Chibnall ruined Doctor Who. He came up with a possible explanation, and I know he was trying to kind of expand the canon. It could have been retconned or explained by RTD, but RTD is the one who dug his heels in and, you know, has been doing everything he can to cement it further into canon. So I lay all of the timeless child effects on RTD, not on Chibnall. So there's two easy explanations for timeless children. Either retcon it as the master lied intentionally, which of course then everything then about the timeless because the only time that we actually saw, quote unquote, you know, the children is in the flashback as the master was explaining. If you wipe out the master's explanation, then everything we quote unquote saw goes out the window too. If you want to get a little more creative about it and not just have it be the standard cliche, oh, well, the master was lying or trying to trick the doctor, I think that because then you have the effects of, you know, is Gallifrey gone? Did he kill the Time Lords or whatever? Which was too colossal of a thing to happen just in one line. The master goes, oh, I destroyed the Time Lords. No, I think, you know, what you do, you reveal the whole thing is like a colossal long con by the Time Lords who are still alive as a way to get the master to trap himself, and they can like then permanently deal with them. That restores the Time Lords, that restores, you know, their power. You know, it can be when the master thought he was pulling a con when actually the Time Lords were pulling their own con on the master. I think that's either of those, I think, is a way to instantly wipe out the timeless children while staying true both to the character of the master and to the character of the Time Lords. And that would be one of the explanations I'd go with.
I mean, the Matrix has been porous, hasn't it? I mean, Mike, what do you think on the timeless children? It needs to be resolved. Have you got any ideas on how we can resolve this?
I like some of the ideas already suggested tonight. I think the idea of potentially other Time Lords having some information and trying to hide all these facts from what's actually been happening, and this information that the Doctor's received is disinformation, and then maybe they could have a whole season arc about what really happened. It is going to be tough to do. They have dumped themselves in a very deep hole. And as you've already said, that Russell T Davies has made the hole even deeper. And that's the problem. But it's science fiction. Science fiction, you can invent any, if it's written well, you can normally get out of it. But at the moment, they've got no intentions of actually sort of getting out of it. They seem to be sort of like keeping with this idea. But it would be great if they could have some clever idea where all this timeless children thing, which has been really almost universally hated, can be resolved and changed and fixed. I mean, it's hard. I'm not a writer to decide how to do it, but like I said, but if they had that idea, would it be written well, or would it be a mess if they did try to fix it? You wonder, you know what I mean? And I don't have much confidence that if they did think, oh, you know what, we were wrong about that. Let's change it. They'll come up with some terrible gimmicky idea, and it'll probably be even less popular than the Timeless Children in the first place.
Yeah, Hugh, we shouldn't over elaborate. This is a trouble. We don't want a science fiction writer to give us a very elaborate kind of explanation to kind of wipe this, because we as fans know, from the Deadly Assassin to the Trial of the Time Lords, the Master seems to walk willy-nilly into the Matrix and dabble with it. He, was dabbled with in Arc of Infinity.
I'm more or less of the opinion that you can write it off in a couple of lines. Because I think it matters only in the sense of canon. It doesn't matter the character of the Doctor. So if the Doctor, whoever plays it, comes on and says, the Master gave me all this stuff about my origin, perhaps I'm not a Time Lord, but I've been a Time Lord all my lives, and I will live the life that I always have done, and walks off and does the stuff that she normally does, then I don't really have a problem with that. I don't need it to be clever. I just need it. I need it to get back to the fact that it's the Doctor's character that drives this, not the science fiction canon bit of it.
Right. And I will obviously, I'll obviously come to Rachel in a moment, but Michelle, how would you resolve the Matrix issue with, the Timeless Children? Would you just say it's a sweep of a line, like we're saying? Do you think this is a big problem with an easy solution?
It was a big problem with an easy solution. The Master lied. I mean, that's just the easiest way to take care of it. It never should have been done, but we can't go back and fix it. Just the Master lied. I think somebody made an interesting comment that on chat that they won't course correct the Timeless Child, but they'll go after Sutek and ruin Sutek's legacy. This idea of the boys club, of protecting their legacy, but not legacy of another writer.
Yeah.
And here's the thing: bear in mind that however they do it, let's say in some world somewhere where RTD is gone and they actually do decide to kind of fix it per our suggestions. As a televisual show, it's not like one of the New Adventures novels where you're going to have 400 pages of deep dive sci-fi explanations, to indulge yourself on. It's an explanation that's going to have to do the job in the simplest, most economical way possible in televisual terms. You're not going to have like a 50-minute episode where somebody comes out and reads the text of how it all of a sudden gets fixed. So they're going to have to keep it simple. And as Michelle is saying, and so the question then, what does the job in the simplest way possible?
Right. Well, we've got, and I am coming to you next after this, Rachel. Theta Sigma. I love all these names. The Timeless Children. My suggestion there is that the person presenting himself as the Master during Jodie's era is in fact the exiled Rassilon, and that all of the information the Doctor is given about the Timeless Child's story is intended to poison the mind of the Doctor as retaliation for exiling Rassilon. There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. And there you go. Now, page 7 of your notes, which I haven't put a gold star on yet, but what would you like to say, Rachel, about some of your points on the Timeless Children?
Oh, well, I've got many points there, but there is one fact that the toy maker, he says he made a puzzle out of the Doctor's history.
Yes.
Right, okay, so now that, obviously I've got it there on the screen, it could suggest that the Doctor never actually left the realm of the toy maker, and it was all a game that was created around him.
Mm-hmm.
However, that could also mean that the this course correction could actually be a whole sort of like a whole story arc of how this could all actually hinge on the celestial toy maker, or the toy maker as he's now called, and that the Master was working with the toy maker to trap the Doctor, but it was all a game, which is how he ends up becoming a tooth.
Yeah,
because I think that's what he becomes, doesn't he? He becomes a tooth. So he loses and becomes a tooth, and so then the toy maker gets obviously locked inside his box, but the toy maker's realm is still there. So maybe they would have to bring back the master in some way, find some way to bring the master back. He confesses the truth, and they have to work together in order to bring down the toy maker and restore the timeline back to the way it was before the Timeless Children. However, I understand that some people will be fans of the Shooty Doctor. That's fine. So his face stays the same.
Right. Okay.
That's just an idea.
No, I understand. I will.
It belongs to the sense sphere.
There you go. As I said,
I'm slightly worried that if that there's so much logic to that, Rachel, that it would be very good if Russell had stolen it, and it would allow it to happen. The other thing about the Timeless Child, though, is that it's ruined it for a lot of people in terms of the canon. It's done nothing for the story. Russell hasn't rejected it, but he's done nothing with it.
It's just sitting there, isn't it? It's just part of it, and it's not. It's just this sort of like issue which really shouldn't have been created. And as you say, it's just sitting there, and it's just in the background, but we're all aware of it. You know what I mean? So,
well, but the thing about it is, and again, it's, I've said this whole season just kind of shows how lazy of a storyteller Russell is. For example, in that explanation of the Schalke doctor that Brendan mentioned before, in that article, it was in SFX magazine, where basically his explanation now for doing anything that he feels like doing just for fun, like inserting the Schalke doctor, his quote was, how nice all these years later to take a little lean back and sort of say, well, the door's now open thanks to the Timeless Child, and you can come in and, kind of basically own your own doctor again. Really, it's just fun, nice thing to do. So the existence of the Timeless Children, I think one of the reasons why Russell will never get rid of it is because to him, it's basically, this endless kind of Mary Poppins bag that never needs to be explained. If he wants to do something just for giggles, he can reach in and he can toss it on the screen, and when fans cry about, well, how does this fit into canon, he can say, well, Timeless Child, everything, he can just go Timeless Child, as if that's kind of get out of free card, jail free card. So he's never going to get rid of it.
RTD has started to talk as if his writing process is very like how Boris Johnson designs a policy, which is it's very sweep, brushstroke, which is bling, 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 and then we move on. So, for example, I was inspired by Star Wars to address the foundling issue of Ruby Sunday. And you think, what? I felt very triggered by how Chris Chibnall was treated, and I liked the Timeless Child idea, and I got the foundling idea with Davina McCall. There you go. Well, do you want to go? I had this amazing idea that Sutek would sit on the TARDIS for 50 years. There's no rhyme or reason, and I don't want to think about it. Next, he's the Boris Johnson of Doctor Who story writing. That's what he is.
He's spaffed Disney's money up against the wall.
Yeah. Next. I've moved on now. Brexit deal's done. I've dealt with the Timeless Children. Next,
I found this morning a priceless quote from Davies. That quote where he says, you got to be pretty tough to stand up to me. We've talked about that a number of times. From the Radio Times. So it says, where he says, the full quote is, I've got to say you have to be a pretty tough executive to stand up to me.
Yep.
And tell me to take the quotas and tell me to take that gay character out when he was asked if he's faced any pushback thing. And he says, good luck with that battle. And here's the thing. He says, but then again, he concedes, I am mythologizing. Sometimes I feel like I'm the hero in my own story. Well, there you go. I mean, the guy, if that doesn't define God complex, I don't know what does.
And of course, it would be good to somehow erase all this as a nonsense, because of course it does challenge who is the first Doctor. It does create that whole ancestry line that has caused so many problems for a lot of Doctor Who fans. It's not landed as a storyline, so if we can erase it, that would be quite a neat trick. Now, the next big one that has been in nearly every one of our reviews, and I think on other streams too, and Mike, we were talking about it too, the diminished doctor, the emotional doctor, the crying doctor, the change doctor. Some also said the female doctor, so I'm including the whole umbrella here. The diminished doctor, since Capaldi, if I was being fine and I summarized all the suggestions I got, since 2017, the doctor has been changed. The doctor's character has been devalued and diminished and played with. Okay. Discuss. How do you agree? How do we deal with it?
I mean, I just think that they've just misunderstood what the Doctor is. They just seem to have forgotten the defining factors of what this incredible character is, and made him or her. Now it's funny. I mean, even the female Doctor. I mean, when I watched Jodie's era, the thing that I always remember was that she was just part of the fam. She didn't even stand out particularly in compared to the rest of the team. And then, of course, what they've done with Ncuti, I don't know what it is that makes the Doctor, but in previous incarnations, they've normally got a lot of elements which normally work quite well. But in recent years, this character is not recognisable. And I think that's the major problem. I don't know why they've forgotten how to create the character.
Sorry, I was just looking at the thread as well, because our thread is frozen on the screen. So I'm trying to look at the thread on my YouTube thing. So I'm just trying to include people when I can. On the diminished doctor front, let's just go, and Gary, yours is the next slide. So Gary, do you want to address what you've said there? And I'll bring people in as we go.
Okay.
Yeah.
First of all, this is one of these things that I think that, again, doesn't really require a retcon to me, because I was just trying to come up with explanations. It seems to me, okay, we got to deal with the fugitive doctor, or as I call her, the agenda doctor, the bi-generation, and Ncuti. Right. So the fugitive doctor, I think you can easily make that she's from an alternate universe. Trying to make the fugitive doctor fit into the existing canon is a colossal waste of time. She never will. So I think it's pointless to try to, twist our brains into pretzels trying to make it seem like she can. She just won't. So I would say I would just make her the doctor, a doctor from an alternate universe. As far as bi-generation goes, as I said in my message to you, bi-generation is just too idiotic of a concept to stand. Stupid. So, but since we didn't see the physical regeneration of David of 14 into, and notice they still haven't explained why when he regenerated, the clothes regenerated too. You could probably maybe make something out of that. But because we didn't see the physical change from 14 into Ncuti or whoever, I think you could latch onto that, and you could make Ncuti's doctor from an alternate timeline as well, one who just got pulled into this one by the toy maker through the explanation of it's a mythology. It was like, the bi-generation was a mythology that had never happened. Because to me, Ncuti's character, whoever he's playing, just isn't the doctor. No. I mean, whether it's because of the crying or the weakness or, him turning into the sex hound that he was in Rogue, for a million different reasons, his character is just not the doctor. So I figure there just needs to be an explanation that he isn't, at least a doctor in this chain, from Hartnell on. So I figure make him a doctor from an alternate timeline as well. It doesn't diminish him, because it doesn't say Ncuti's not a doctor. You can keep him a doctor, just not the doctor in this.
I like the idea. I like the idea that when 14 transferred the bi-generation, it was some multi-universe elements. So really, it's like it merged with a doctor from a different dimension. So really, the 14th Doctor is still the current Doctor, but this weird split with the new Doctor, the 15th, is some elements, as you said, it wasn't explained properly. He just had a bi-generation. Yeah, I'd like the idea that they could muck about with it, maybe explain it more, and that works for me. That idea.
I mean, I think it answers all the calls that somebody, people will say, oh, well, you're an ist of whatever. No, it's like, okay, I'm still accepting that the fugitive doctor was a doctor. Ncuti is still a doctor, but they acknowledge that there's things about it that just don't fit. So how do you account for the
Different
discrepancy? while still-
characterizations. Well,
yeah.
I
I
go
think-
back even further than that and say something happened during the 12th regeneration one, because the 13th got kicked out of the TARDIS. Why did the TARDIS kick the Doctor out?
I
I
think
go back further.
That was
something
Sutek.
I think there's a possibility, because look, if I'm summarizing the thread and I'm summarizing what suggestions I got, most people want to go back to 2017. So I agree that the Doctor under Ncuti has changed, but I think we need to go back. I personally think we need to go back further to solve this issue. And it's
And also
not
go
about
back to the Doctor is a hero. And here's the problem.
And it's-
Modern Hollywood will not write a character to be a hero. We're not a male character to be the hero. Go back with the Disney Files expose, in which they said that they were not going to write certain, a male character as being a hero.
But remember that Jodie Whittaker was a female, and so my proposition is one of the explanations, because it's out there, that the Capaldi Doctor was so troubled by the death of his companion, as we saw in Heaven Sent, etc., that it's affected his chemistry, so to speak. It's kind of tried to address a rebalance. I was seeing this ages ago when a lot of psychologists, etc., were talking about the gay gene, if there is one, and they were saying that why do gay people exist? And hello, I'm here. They were saying that there's a possibility that when there's domestic violence or there's a situation in the family, that actually the genes within the womb can be affected, and actually it's as if biology says you need a calming influence. Now, there's a lot of theories out there. You could throw that into sci-fi, whether it's right or wrong, because I think it would talk about the Capaldi Doctor was so troubled, as he was on screen, by the death of his companion, that for some reason it affected his chemistry when we got to regeneration. When it comes to the Ncuti Doctor, I'm happy to say that blooming sledgehammer, the fantasy twaddle, this all created a kind of fantasy Doctor. He's now the plaything of the Toy Maker, whether the Toy Maker's locked up or not. He's created this kind of fantasy version of a Time Lord, and so this can be rectified away. I just think if you're going to the Jodie Doctor, there needs to be a reason why it went from a man to a woman, instead of saying it's nonsense that when Romana was in Destiny of the Daleks, she kept picking another female iteration of herself rather than thinking, you know what, I'd fancy being a man for once. No, she didn't do that. This was only when Stephen Moffat, under the DEI protocols, decided he would play around. And,
to be fair, I think it's also under the whole idea, because it was floated by John Nathan Turner as well. I think some of it is to do with creating a story. So in the real world, not in Doctor Who world. So I think some of it is that as well, and it meant there was hype, and there was all the huge number that turned into Jodie's first episode.
Right. Well, let me address, because everybody, I'm trying to talk fast. I've got 6 on the panel thread. Please understand, and I'm trying to get a word in edgeways too. And I'm just trying to explain that there has been discussion, and all I'm saying is, if there's a discussion out there, sci-fi likes to play on it. And we want to come up with a solution for a family science fiction show. I'm not suddenly talking about I am some sort of anthropologist or anything. So let's get real. Let's get perspective. We're asking for solutions to a program. Can I have solutions in the thread? And let's not get distracted by the fact that I haven't done a thesis on a few sentences I've just said. Can we be clear on that, please? Thank you. So I was discussing that it has been mooted out there, and science fiction tends to enjoy playing with things that are mooted. Didn't Christopher H. Bidmead play around with things that were mooted? So can we get real, please, and get back to discussing how we solve a family sci-fi show instead of getting distracted? Thank you, thread. Let's get back to normal. Right. Rachel, you're up here, aren't you? You were talking about this as well, weren't you, I think? The diminished Doctor. I don't know if it's up there. Go on, Rachel. What's your thoughts on the diminished Doctor, the changed Doctor, how we can rectify it?
Have you got all night?
Well, you'll have more time than me, because obviously if I say a few sentences, they're all kicking off.
Well, I don't know. I mean, like, work out what truly is supposed to actually be the Doctor versus what we've got now. I mean, I tried to sit down and go through all of that. I wrote an entire speech about it in one of my videos. But yeah, he's just... The writing for it is so off, isn't it? It's just that he doesn't even sound like the Doctor anymore.
No.
And that's really what it is. It's like he's not being pragmatic. He's not being alien. He's falling in love with people that he's just met. And that, has that ever happened with the Doctor before in the past? I mean, when we had the David Tennant Doctor and, you know, falling in love with Rose, which I really didn't like anyway, he couldn't even say to her that he loved her. Why? Because he's an alien.
Yeah.
And he lives for a very long time. He would die. He wouldn't die. She would grow old and die. So it would be unfair to do that. And now suddenly he's falling in love with random strangers he's just met. He's not saving his companion. He's not putting his companion first. He is prioritizing his sex drive, which apparently he now has. And it's not intelligent writing. It's the writing for the Doctor is way too simple now. Too simple.
Yeah.
That's because it's fan fiction.
Yeah.
Also,
I mean,
for a younger audience as well.
But if Ncuti doesn't, that was kind of my thinking in to a small degree when I was trying to come up with my ideas, because I'm thinking, if Ncuti doesn't seem like the Doctor, let's just go with that and explain that he's not. I want to, Brenda mentioned two really interesting comments that the theories that people are coming up with are great. Over the Overseer said, what if we went back to Jodie? She didn't really regenerate at all. She was just replaced with the body of another 10th Doctor, like from an alternate. That would explain the clothes regeneration issue.
That works.
TGAP Steve says, if you use the Valyard, it works. The Valyard wants more lives. Lock Capaldi in a virtual world thinking he has infinite regenerations, which pushes him mentally towards becoming the Valyard. Then he also says that fixes the Whittaker and Tennant clothing issue. The Doctor's subconscious is telling him something's wrong. He says each regeneration in the virtual world is one more closer to the Doctor inevitably becoming the Valyard, and the Valyard gets another life after his own. So all of his theory is keyed into bringing back the Valyard as part of this.
Thanks. And this is from John Sheridan, and he talked about it's the casting. Let me begin by saying that I believe it was a mistake to bring Tennant back for 3 episodes. Why not a new Doctor immediately? If Ncuti Gatwa, then his first episode should have been the Meep. Frankly, I call Ncuti the teenage Doctor because he just acts the way like an 18-year-old, full of hormones and immature in his approach to problems and life. Although I've got to admit that Ncuti really rocks the tan leather trench coat. However, the very first time we meet him in the giggle, he wasn't wearing pants. It was then that I immediately feared the death of classical Doctor Who. Indeed, I laughed towards the end of the series when he and Ruby are dressed like soldiers. It looked like a scene from G.I. Jane. The drill sergeant Doctor blows his whistle and shouts at Private Ruby, drop and give me 10 push-ups. Who does your panel think would have been a better Doctor? And there's a lot of lists there. That's assuming you agree with what I've just said. Further, the casting for the Toymaker and the Maestro were terrible choices, and it goes on. So basically, we're talking about a diminished Doctor, but John Sheridan is saying it goes deeper than that. We've had some bad casting, and some people would say Jodie Whittaker is equal to that. Some I would argue it's the writing. We seem to have started to hit a lot of missteps. And it's whether they are going for certain protocols. Rachael has told us this in various streams that, they have certain criteria now that they try to cover in their auditions. And of course, whether suddenly things are changing and we're not getting the classic Doctor that we would have normally.
I only agree with 2 things from that. Yep. First of all, it was a mistake bringing David Tennant back. And the other one was Maestro being a miscast. Those are the only 2 things that I agree with. The reason why I don't agree with the other stuff is obviously, I had the basis of I'm an actress. I've done this job and I know how it is to be up there and doing it. And I will call miscast when I feel there is one. Currently, at the moment, with regards to Shooty, I can't make that judgment because the writing has been so poor. And a lot of what they've actually mentioned on the screen in that particular message to you is all to do with Russell T Davies, and it's all to do with his writing and what it is that he wants. I mean, that there, you can't say that that's a Shooty fault here, can you? Really?
No.
That is RTD. That is RTD putting his young Kendall in a dress up, and he thinks it's funny, and it's his idea of Doctor Who, and he's aiming this at really young children, and it's just I don't know.
I think I just think the thing is, when RTD tries to go for a sexual joke or something, they don't land anymore, sadly. In this case, his new actor in boxer shorts becomes a problem because you surely are diminishing him as a character compared to the David Tennant Doctor. You surely are. And you're giving it a harder start. And then when you look at skin colour, you start to go, RTD, what are you doing? You're diminishing a man who's trying to launch himself.
I think that was what I was trying to go for, but my words were getting a bit jumbled there. But yeah, it's just
well, we're told that he's wonderful, but we've never gotten a chance to see him really do his acting chops. He's not had a regeneration episode. He's not had an episode where he is the new Doctor trying to feel himself out. He's not had the moment where he's given the Doctor speech. Where he's we've seen hints of it, but he's never been allowed to be the Doctor, and yet we're being told that he's wonderful.
Right, and here's Pebble Pot. I do not want to have a Doctor with heightened emotions. I am not saying that males should not cry. However, I believe that an alien who is over 900 years old and having gone through everything the Doctor's been through, I do not see why they would have such heightened emotions as to this current iteration, especially post-therapy, apparently. It was always the role of the companion to act on behalf of the viewer, not the Doctor. Quite right. That's what seems to have been forgotten.
It's because this isn't our Doctor. I mean, go with Occam's razor. He'll turn out. He just turns out not to be our Doctor.
And again, I think I said last time I was on. I mean, I find this deeply patronising from Russell to talk about mental health when it throws away the very strength the Doctor had in talking to those of us who struggle with mental health because of that oddity, and it makes him way too ordinary. And it's not about making people feel comfortable. It's about making Russell feel comfortable.
Yeah. Is this one of
Brandon, I just want to, I know before we get too far away from it, the picture, the article you had up before, which was talking about possible other actors who could have been
the casting one.
Better Doctors.
Oh, yeah.
One of them, Patterson Joseph. If you want to see how good Patterson Joseph could have been as a Doctor, go watch the 90s miniseries Neverwhere, which is based on Neil. It's like a 6-episode Neil Gaiman kind of fantasy thing.
Which has Capaldi in it as well, obviously.
It was Capaldi in it. If you want to see what a great Doctor Patterson Joseph could have been, go watch.
Joseph is very good.
That story. He was the Marquis. He played this character called the Marquis de Carabas, which was this kind of, mysterious figure who guided the hero on the kind of journey through, and just based on that, he would have been great.
I always think that since I've watched Shooty, I just think he's been miscast. One actor who I'd love to have seen as the Doctor is Richard Ayoade from the IT Crowd. If you know the actor, he's very good. I could just see him as a person of colour portraying the Doctor in a way which I think would be more recognisable than our current iteration.
Yes, yeah. And again,
as an intelligent Morse.
Yeah, I keep thinking if Shooty's reading the lines he's been given, though, the Americanisms, and does it say in in brackets in the script? Does it say cries? I mean, he's working with what he's given. I know we all said Capaldi had some duff scripts, but he still made them sing. But I do wonder how because they said he wanted, remember RTD, who's writing this, said he wanted a more emotional doctor, the gayest doctor, because of the dark times we're in. He's directed this. He's said this is the direction we're going in.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to see what will happen now politics have changed.
Well, you've just mentioned
But
politics.
see, I mean, honestly, my gut reaction to that is, okay, that's all very high-minded and it sounds great, you know, and it sounds like, you know, a very, you know, worthy thing that RTD says, I want to have a more emotional doctor. But in reality, what did we see that he meant by that? The doctor cries every episode. So as high-minded as he wanted to sound by saying, oh, the doctor needs to be more emotional, he didn't have the ability or the interest in portraying the full range of what that meant. It stopped at, okay, the doctor will cry more. That in real terms is what we saw of RTD's more emotional doctor. Maybe RTD thinks that, okay, that for men to be emotional, they have to cry more, and that's the end of it.
Mind you, Jodie was given Duff lines too, Graham's cancer, blah, blah, blah. So it's been there for a while. Now, Rachel mentioned politics, and just as an aside for a moment, did anyone see Jane Tranter's comments?
I did.
I actually sent them to Gary Lee. I actually got him to post them. So basically, the first one was that bottom one. Well done, Kia. Trans rights now, please. Then I suppose the right-hand side's interesting because Jane Tranter, wonderful to be waking up in the UK this morning with a Labour government. Let the change begin. And then somebody's written, it was woke Doctor Who what won it. And she goes, I believe you, ha, ha, ha. And then Lisa Nandy is our new culture secretary. And you can see Jane Tranter already trying to work, I don't know, funding, taxpayers' money. She's hopeful for a new life to the cultural life of Britain. Hopeful her now known concern for children education and leveling up will create strong opportunities. Did anyone see this? And did anyone think this is possibly one of the background problems here? RTD is clearly on the left. He needs people who can be a check and a balance. She's one of them. Julie Gardner, less so because Julie Gardner's in LA.
Right.
Meanwhile, Jane Tranter is in an office right next to him in Cardiff. She clearly agrees with where this country is going, with some of the woke and cultural agenda. So therefore, where's the checks and balances?
Well, she also clearly disagrees with Kia's latest statement in terms of women's rights and hasn't picked that up. The whole thing with this is it's not just about being on the left. Any theory as on the left as Russell and Jane Tranter, that's not how this works. It's more complex, and Doctor Who used to allow for more complex things in terms of, obviously we're talking about Malcolm Hulke separately on this, who was a communist, writing in the middle of an establishment organisation about the army and writing about it in a fairly considerate way. We have lost nuance. We only have groupthink.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and echo chambers. But it just the thing that got me the most. Look, everybody can have a political opinion, of course they can. Although as a teacher, I was never allowed to espouse one. Quite rightly. But that bottom one there, the briefest one, well done, Kia, trans rights now, please. Now, I suppose she could be arguing on the trans rights issue for people up to 99 years old. Or since she's also, if you think of the Beep the Meep and you think of the Star Beast and you think of what her productions and their dialogue has been talking about, having a 15-year-old trans character, you then add 2 and 2 and you might be making 4, you might be making 4.5. But you do think, hold on a minute, there's a hell of an agenda going on here. And we're trying to talk about retrieving Doctor Who, saving Doctor Who, and yet they are really wanting to push an agenda. That's how it seems.
And it's an incredibly simplistic, narrow agenda. It's not, this isn't about tolerance, this isn't about diversity, this isn't about inclusion. It's about intolerance, no diversity, and exclusion.
So
does anybody actually really think that the current BBC, I mean, with the current BBC and with the current showrunner, that anything about Doctor Who is going to change? I don't.
No.
I mean, I think that's, I mean, RTD is going to keep obsessing about his, cringe insertions of modern cultural, hot button issues. I mean, BBC is going to keep saying more and more and more. So I think that all the stuff we've been presenting are great ideas, but RTD and the BBC aren't concerned with great ideas for the sake of great ideas, only if whatever ideas we have fit into their
it's got to fit
template.
into
So as long as without some kind of, revolution kind of regime change, which includes showing RTD the door, I don't think any of this is going to happen.
That slide showed to me, I'd only just started following Jane Tranter, funnily enough. I had an instinct. I thought, I wonder if somebody's going to say something about the Labour landslide victory. And of course, there it was, delivered on a plate to me on that morning by Jane Tranter herself.
I take it there was no comment about having a massive landslide on the basis of 33.7% of the vote.
No, well, the point is here on the politics front, which is they've got a lower audience share than Jeremy Corbyn's defeat, and they've got a landslide. That's our first past the post. That's our chaos system. But yeah, that doesn't mean they have a mandate. And of course, the mandate's to do troublesome stuff. Maybe the mandate here, Hugh, that worries me is regarding Doctor Who, which is the Doctor Who chief executives, who all seem to be on one side of politics, as you said, with their little think tank, so to speak. They basically will now feel liberated. They will.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I think the part of the thing, though, is, as we've discussed, the Series 2 is already shot. So I don't think there's going to be that much different. I think they were hoping for a conflict with the BBC, with the Conservative government, which they might well have got if Rishi hadn't called the election quite as soon, and we had David Tennant's speech before we were in the middle of an election campaign. It just seems to me that this is such an incredibly narrow group of people in terms of, it's not just about being a left wing, it's a very, very specific group of left wing, and it's an incredibly elitist one.
Yeah.
Ridiculously elitist.
Nigel Farage mentioned Doctor Who in his campaigning about how much he loves the show, and he hates it now.
Yep.
Yeah, but people are saying that he's never seen it, apparently.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, because Nigel's almost exactly the same age. I think he's 2 months different from me.
The thing is, we don't have a problem with liberal politics in this show. It's always been there. Our problem is how it's now addressed, and because of the quality of the writing not being being substandard.
The problem is I mean, I mentioned in my saloon the other day on the David Tennant one. The problem is also that Doctor Who is suddenly being mentioned by politicians and used as a, it's a token, it's a trophy, and I don't want us to be in that position, because it will cause a backlash on one side. People will refuse to watch Doctor Who because they think it's either very left or very right. If Farage thinks it used to be good, and it's going to cause chaos, and it's put us and positioned Doctor Who in exactly the wrong position. Why is Doctor Who getting mentioned by top politicians in this country? It's supposed to be just doing entertainment. That's where it's gone wrong. Now I've got up here the other issue, and then we're going to have a kind of, I'm gonna get everybody shocked in a minute with the ratings. You won't have seen this, I tell you. But first, it's the show structure. A lot of you had issues with the show structure, how it's put together, and all the rest of it, and of course whether there's any solutions here. So Muldwich here, let me just give him a shout out here. Start telling simple stories that didn't rely on the crutch of nostalgia and cheap thrills. Encourage the writers to focus on the fundamental elements that matter, an intelligent alien who fights for the underdog. Quietly jettison the canonical missteps, and of course you've got the list there: Timeless Children, By Generation, Fraggle Rock, Fantasy Goblins. Further to the above point, use the soft reset to create a change of direction and a buffer between the recent episodes and the inevitable point at which the show will become bogged down by continuity. So there you go on that one.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And here's Gary again. This is you've mentioned the show format as well.
Oh, these were just some things I thought, could work. I said I'd like to bring back the cliffhangers, multi-part adventures, whether like single episode or 2 or 3 parts with no story arc for the season, because I think they're coming up with, they have a story arc for the sake of having it, which is dumb. You have to get a producer and a script editor team, and that's important, who aren't lifelong fanboys like the Three Stooges picture that you showed at the top of the show.
Yeah.
Just creators who know how to construct well-told, exciting stories for all audiences, like Barry Letts and Terrence Dix, Robert Holmes and Philip Hinchcliffe, something like that. And I said, above all, keep the show focused on the adventures that the Doctor has, like in the classic series, not on the Doctor himself, not on, Doctor Who, where it's all about finding out about his origins. It's like, okay, let's take a show that's all about a mysterious lead character and spend our time providing explanations about the character.
Yeah.
It's like, enough. Let's just stop. And then I said before, drop the obsession with all the cringe current stuff.
I mean, Michael, I agree. I mean, I do agree. I've been saying a lot of this myself. A lot of fans are saying this, but the issue about the Doctor and the companion arcs is interesting, because I think Doctor Who should be about the Doctor, but just the Doctor going on an adventure and getting into a pickle. That's what I mean. I mean, that's it. He lands somewhere. He can't drive the TARDIS properly. He lands somewhere. He gets in a pickle. End of. But the trouble is, it's all become about the companion. And in season 1, we've had the Doctor really is running around telling Una what to do to solve an issue for a companion. He's now just a conduit, really. Yes, cliffhangers. I don't want an arc, Michael. I just want the Doctor getting stuck.
It's certainly interesting. Obviously, since New Who returned with the Rose arc, it was very different way of writing, whereas before it was that the companion was there. We know some things about the companion, we know some things about the Doctor, but it was more about the story, it was the adventure, it was the problem that they were facing together. Whereas of course now it's a completely different thing, where you have to know the background of the companions, like their family, where their mum is, where their dad is, where they live, what if they've got a boyfriend or a girlfriend, and all these very analytical information about the companion. Now, I can understand that, yes, you do need to have some interest in the companion, and so you have to write a backstory. But, as you say, it was very different in the old shows. I mean, I'm watching, currently I'm watching season 19 again with, and obviously I'm watching the Tegan character, where basically she just wants to get back to Heathrow Airport, and she wants to be an air stewardess. And I love that, because she's a great feisty character. And obviously, we do meet her aunt, who actually gets killed by the Master. But I like the idea that it was to kind of just get on with it. Just she had this wonderful attitude with the Doctor. She's very snarky and everything. New companions, they're just not like that. There's just something about them which is like with the Ruby thing, with the whole thing with the mum, and all the build up, and we're going to see Susan and everything. Just kind of like have them there, but don't make it such a big factor about that we met their brother and we're going to meet their sister and they're going to go and see Auntie Nora for Christmas Day and all this sort of stuff. You know what I mean? There is a difference in the way that they do it, which I don't think actually always helps the show. And
what's happened, Rachel, is pick on any of these about the show structure you want, but one of the things, just to join with what Michael was saying, is if you look at where season 1 ended, the Doctor said, without you, because of you, I've grown. All of a sudden, this alien really needs a 19-year-old to grow as a person. That is it's chaos. Go on, Rachel.
And we didn't see any growth. We barely had any time with them together. So that line just didn't make sense.
No.
What Michelle said.
I mean, you know what?
Yeah.
Feel something. I mean, I did tear up and cry a little bit with the scene where Ruby met her mom, because I was well acted. But between the other, you made me grow. I mean, I just didn't see that.
Yeah. Rachel, on the show structure, where can we go from here? What do we need to sort out?
Well, I think ditch the companion story arc.
Yeah.
To be quite
Yeah.
frank, I sent it in the private chat. JNT actually started the story arcs, didn't he? And like they do actually work. They do, but he did it not as often as we get it now. And we didn't really, I suppose, other than Tegan, get any character backstory until we got to Ace. And that was okay. It was fine. But JNT had a way of making the story arcs work, and RTD 1, version 1, definitely did, particularly with Donna Noble. That was the best story arc
that was
for
quite
a
good.
companion. I don't think you should have done it with Martha or with Rose. I don't think you needed it, but with Donna, it does work. Now it's kind of just gotten to the point where it's overdone, it's overused. It's the Impossible Girl storyline over and over and over again. And if we just made it so that maybe we have the 2-parters at 50 minutes, or perhaps a 3-parter at 50 minutes, 2 is probably the most optimal one in this day and age. I think it would be a lot better. It would give them a bit more time to work on the scripts, a bit more time to tell the story, instead of this like rushed sort of resolution that we get. When we did the Mark of the... No, was it the Mark of the Rani? Yes, we did do the Mark of the Rani. When we did the Mark of the Rani, they actually set up the answer to the resolution quite early on in the second episode. And you see the Doctor sabotaging something within the TARDIS. Now, you don't know that's going to be what is the resolution until they get it in, until the Master and the Rani go into that TARDIS. But that was brilliant. You know, you see him doing it and you're like, what is he up to? And then suddenly, oh yeah, I did that. At the end, and you're like, wow, okay, that was the whole point behind it. So set it up early on within the second episode, perhaps, maybe, of that particular one, and then let it resolve itself all the way throughout that particular episode.
And not be dependent on strange spoons.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
You're talking about a time period of the show where they had a writer who knew what he was doing and actually has a resolution that pays off.
Yeah.
You know, we went through a whole what I am so angry about, you know, or irritated about, is we went through 8 episodes of having it snow, and then we're told, we don't know why, she's nobody. Huh?
Yeah.
Then why was it snowing? You told us in 8 episodes that this child was special.
Oh, I've said it before, you know, you can have a MacGuffin, but the reveal of what the actual thing is has to be as big as the MacGuffin. And
it has to track with all the clues you've laid down, which this didn't do.
Instead of just making it look like, I just put it in there and I had no idea why. And here's the other thing we'll go into. I think we need to have no more having the showrunner write the scripts.
Yeah, a lot of people mentioned the writer's room. A lot of people said, take it away for a few years, get it all set up properly. You need strong script editors. You do actually need to get some checks and balances set up in that private company. We've mentioned.
I go so far to say
the Bible to rely on.
Well, I go so far to say that for me, I think RTD coming back is the worst thing that could have happened to this show.
I agree.
Yeah,
even though I didn't see that happening. I didn't see that happening, but yeah, I agree. It was a very, very bad decision. He's messed it up completely.
So I've got Theta Sigma here. We did mention Fugitive Doctor, but I'm going to race us on a little bit because obviously we want to hit some other solutions and everything. The Joe Martin Doctor, first and foremost, that incarnation was more the Doctor in one episode than any given by Jodie or Shooty. And why they didn't use her in the first place instead of Jodie baffles me. But she could be an interim regeneration. Yeah, we know that one, 2 and 3. I know. Yeah. I think it just, I don't know.
Alternate. She's an alternate.
She is. Now, we've got this one coming up. I just wanted to I wanted to get a laugh going here because we need a laugh with all this kind of grim news. So you know that the easiest way to get a laugh nowadays is to actually do a discussion about the ratings for the moment. So, are you ready?
Okay.
Yes, I'm not going to do what every stream does, you know, the usual. Why would I do that? I know that you've all got pressing time on your hands and, you know, life's hard. So let me get to my discussion about the ratings, which I've just got here. Here we go. So let's see if I can surprise you folks. Well, the first slide won't. I just need to give context. We all know what the series looked like regarding the average ratings of 3.7, the worst since whenever. It's right down there with season 26, and that got cancelled. And we did this last time on our stream. So that was our context. Now, I was just diving through on the thread, enjoying myself. Now, did you lot know this? Season 1 is looking to have a massive tail in the viewership. Plus 28 days so far. Space Babies 4.39, Devil's Cord 4.4, Boom 4.2, 73 Yards 4.5, and Dot and Bubble 3.8. And then the same person later on says that Space Babies has now, after 56 days, got 5.8.
Oh, for goodness
and after 56 days, it's now got 5.94. And
Wait.
yeah, so I'm ready for some of us to pull back and regret what we've said before.
Yeah.
And here's a bit more for you, just to give you nice context, because we've never said this. None of you panelists have said this to me. And so I'm wondering about, you know, we've become an echo chamber. Jodie's era only gained 500,000 in the first 56 days, while so far this doctor has seen 1.8 million. So, only around 12 million were watching TV when Boom aired. TV as a whole is down. But if this streaming uptick is anything to go by, then Doctor Who's becoming a streaming show. The projection with the way it's going is for it to reach 7.5 million by September and 9 million by Christmas. So who's going to say sorry first?
I'm sorry that person knows nothing about statistics and numbers, and that hurts. It hurts.
I'm sorry,
the way they
they
come
sent
up
out
with these
Shill.
My question would be, okay, then, all of which proves what? That the show automatically is good quality? Because that's never, if that's what I would say to those people, if that's what you're working for, that the more you manipulate the number, that will make the content better than, yeah.
Yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
just don't worry, we'll get the 365-day rating soon.
My question is, how many are going to come back on Christmas Day after what
You should
happened?
do
in
a show
the
this
fire
time
death?
next year and actually get the full year's actual
Michael, I don't think we should do reviews a few days after the show's shown. We should do it a year later, shouldn't we?
Let's all set a date for this time next year and let's just see how many ratings
Yeah.
we've got by then, huh?
Yeah. And since we're talking about numbers, you know, maybe my subs will have gone up in a year's time. So why should I be bothered? Maybe my views will have gone up. I mean, this is crazy, isn't it? 56. I've never heard anyone in the media saying 56 days in, EastEnders has now got 3 million. You know, I mean, honestly, it's like, what did they used to say? Newspaper headlines are chip wrappers the next day. You know, that's how it works. Whereas when it comes to the media, oh no, prize it forever. Oh man, honestly.
Brendan, things like this belong, you need to create a new section of the stream called Coping Corner. And all of these numbers fit into that.
Well, we've been so nasty people judging it like that. When, you know, I have to say, everyone in the thread, I ask for my panelists to give me ideas and everything, but they've never said any of this. So I'm let down, actually. I feel really let down that none of you pointed out.
Yeah. It's that bit where it says, Jodie, you only ever gave 500,000. But at the start of it got 10 million. It's got twice as much as everything else has got. in one showing.
Is this called selective, selective reading?
Yes, but they are trying to brand
insanity.
the Jodie era as the worst era now, aren't they?
They are.
They are trying to, and it's like,
but it was the bestest ever. It was the bestest ever 2 years ago, and
in my opinion, they're as bad as each other for different reasons.
Bring back the talking frog.
Oh God, yes. Oh well, there you go. Then I thought that would cheer you up.
That's hilarious.
So the other one that was mentioned as a problem, and this I think might split the panel a little bit because some of the suggestions I got, well, you've seen one, was about using the multiverse, and other ones are no way, and the unit is going to be a problem. So there's a few issues on this one. So here we've got John Sheridan again. Sadly, units have been reduced to a mutual admiration society and contributed nothing to plot development. When Kate sits down with Ruby in 73 Hours, she says that she's wished Ruby had contacted Unit sooner, and we get a lot of spiel there. And John Sheridan goes into so much detail about how Unit, and we've mentioned the 13-year-old genius with the segue. We've mentioned that Rose
armed segue, not just any segue.
So, and of course, we know there's a spin-off with Martha Jones, the Sea Devils, and Unit, and Mel, and Shirley, and everybody. So maybe because he now, like I said, he's got the Boris Johnson style of story writing, which is, oh yes, if I have Unit, that means I can have Mel. If I have Unit, that means I can do this, and I can do this kind of little, Tinkerbell dust over the whole of the Doctor Who universe so easily without any explanation. I mean, what is your judgment of the panel? I'll ask Michelle first. Is Unit a problem really going forward? Have we gone, I know Unit was brilliant in the 70s. I know it was key to the Exile era, etc. But has it now become another problem? And it's like a time window into a new universe called Multiverse.
Well, the problem with Unit is that they've never been really knowing how to use it since the 70s. And they've never really defined Kate Lethbridge Stewart's character beyond that she's the daughter of Brigadier. I mean, you see every episode that she's in, her personality changes. So, and the scientific advisor of Unit is the new Defense Against the Dark Art position and the Unit. They change them every book, and so is again. No one knows how to write who. No one knows how to write characters anymore. It is a symptom of a larger problem.
Anyone else want to comment on this, on Unit being a problem or a blessing? I know Hugh, for example, we've talked before. Unit, you're not happy with anyway, are you?
I mean, I'm not a big fan. Well, I'm not a big fan of the relationship the Doctor sometimes has with Unit in the 70s, which is very cozy. I think it's ameliorated by the fact that Nicholas Courtney was just such a good actor to have in the role that made the Brigadier much more of a human person than the writing was really there. It's a great piece of acting, it really is. But the tension between whether you're looking at the Doctor Who, I agree with previous arguments. I don't think the Doctor is a pacifist, but I don't think he's militarist either. So there should always be a tension there. So that's always been a bit problematic to me. And it became very, very cozy. So yeah, I was glad whenever they began moving away from Unit. I think if I cannot but imagine that if the Brigadier's fictional grave is anywhere, although we know he's obviously a Cyberman, thanks for that one, Stephen.
Yeah.
It's just a desecration of what was a very well done, even if I disliked it in some ways, a very well done concept. This isn't. This is a mess. This is for Russell to put in whoever and get someone on an iPad looking at thefts in Catford.
Yeah.
But she's beautiful. She's very beautiful. She's very beautiful doing that.
Yeah, we haven't said, and yeah, let's not talk about looks. I mean, this is the thing. I mean, all these progressives are talking about looks. We're beyond looks, aren't we? Mike, does Unit land with you? I mean, I used to like Unit. The way it's being used now, I can see what he's doing. I want it.
I going back, because obviously I always go about the 80s as my era of Doctor Who, and Unit wasn't so prominent back then. It worked much better in the 70s when it was obviously the John Pertwee era. For current Doctor Who, I think there have been some episodes where they've been used relatively well, but I've also seen a lot of episodes where they just seem to be, as I said, they're supposed to be more like the military liaison, aren't they, for the Doctor, who's more of a pacifist. But I haven't been that blown away by many New Who Unit episodes, really. Obviously, the Brigadier was so good, and a lot of people don't like Kate Lethbridge Stewart. I don't mind her. I like the fact that she's been in the show in this role for quite a long time now, since about 2010. So that's quite a long time, 2011. But I'm take it or leave it kind of thing. Sometimes they work. Maybe they're in it a bit too much these days. I don't know. But I don't dislike them, but I don't love them either. Sorry to give you a slightly vague answer.
No, it's an enormous tower to house 5 workers. That's what I'm stunned by. I mean, you have 15-year-old. Sorry, 19-year-old.
Obviously, there's some of the people we've seen, like the 15-year-old and the kids. And everything. What's that all about? I mean, that comes across as very childish. Like
yes,
I just didn't like that. I mean, at least back in the 60s, it felt like a proper military organization. But now it looks like these people on CBeebies. It looks like a CBeebies show. It looks so childish, and it actually sort of destroys the whole purpose of Unit. These colourful characters just sitting there and I don't like that. Thinking about it, no, I don't like it. No.
I mean,
I've changed my mind now.
I'd say. Except for like there have been times when it's what sort of okay. The Zygons episode, I don't think it's done that badly.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's done quite well, and it's all sort of like militaristic and secret stuff. And the Tower of London, great location to have stuff. But this is Russell's just making it laughable.
The latest version is not good.
The current unit, the picture that you were just showing a minute ago, Brendan.
Yeah.
This current unit to me is the fictional embodiment of what happens when DEI hiring gets out of control. Because what do you have? You have the legacy hire who's completely incompetent. You have her soldier boy toy that she was holding hands with at the end of the episode. You have a guy who's playing Candy Crush during a crisis in the main room.
Yeah.
You have a 13-year-old with an armored
Machine
Segway.
gun. Yeah.
You have this formerly mind-controlled tech wizard who's now apparently the Unit T lady, and you've got Mel.
Yeah,
Mel is the only one I would trust in any kind of a crisis.
Oh,
among that
and you've got Blinks, whatever that was.
Yeah. And how come Mel?
Blinks, who's Chameleon's incompetent younger brother.
Yeah.
I mean, Mel is a good character, but if you think the 13-year-old genius has an armed, weaponized Segway, she just has a normal bog standard scooter. How come she doesn't get any rockets? I mean, it's funny how they pick to get all these things. Anyway,
also though, we haven't seen it yet, but how much do you want to bet that because we now had the who was the lady with the rockets in the wheelchair?
Yeah,
now we have
Shelby Bingham.
Right, and now we have the 13-year-old with the machine guns. I'll bet you that the Unit daycare center, just like in Space Babies, has flamethrowers in the strollers in the Unit daycare.
They're going to do Unit's going to be, and are you being served? You have a certain floor, and then suddenly when they have to do wallpaper decorating, they go to another floor and they have to do work in the kids department. Yeah, you can see the level of it. Every floor is going to have a special niche to it. Now, here, let's look at some solutions here. So, the rescue mission, let's look at how we're going to solve some of this. Now,
where's Sutek on that? Sutek should be sitting on the top.
He's on the top. You can't see him.
What's good is that painting, as you know, with links to the Vincent van Gogh one. And of course, that was a good episode about mental health, actually, wasn't it?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. God, we seem to be going way back. Now, I want to mention this for a second, folks, because before we hit any of our big solutions, I thought we could dust down the Andrew Cartmel master plan because it didn't quite come to fruition, but there may be some possibilities in actually dusting that off and using it again, because if I remind you, the overall plan was just to reveal that the Doctor was some form of reincarnation of the Other, a mysterious figure from Gallifrey's past who helped form the Time Lord Society and perfect the time travel technology of the worlds. Do you know what? I have a feeling this is what these three, RTD, Moffat and Chibnall, have been thinking about, isn't it? They've done their plagiarism. The trouble is, I didn't buy into this. I wasn't wanting this. I know this will split fandom. It normally does. I think it's become a myth because it didn't quite get done. But what's everyone's thoughts? Because in a way, we've got a kind of cheap version of the Andrew Cartmel master plan. But if you look at those first few lines, I disagree with it. I didn't want the Doctor going in that direction anyway. But we seem to be making the Doctor not a Time Lord, don't we?
Yeah.
So I always sort of read this. Yeah, the whole other thing is a bit like that. If it was about formation of the society and he knew a bit more than you had up till then, and he was the equivalent of Rassilon or Omega, then you can sort of get away with it. But even then, it strains the narrative for everything else.
Yeah,
I thought some of the stories were quite good, and sort of like some of the stuff that Sylvester McCoy did were quite good. But even then, we're back at things like the gods of Ragnarok, and I don't like gods in Doctor Who. What does God need with a spaceship?
Yeah, I think this is the problem, because you see little bits like the second paragraph. The Doctor explicitly says to Davros that he's far more than just another Time Lord. John Nathan Turner objected portraying the Doctor as a god in case it caused offence to some countries. Is that the only reason narratively? Gosh. And then, of course, just as a reminder, you've got a few examples here. Lady Painfort in Silver Nemesis is coming out. Have a look at our recent stream about that. Was talking about, well, is he from Gallifrey? They had that discussion. Controlling Ghostlight says of the Doctor that he doesn't fit any description by any alien species. Therefore, is he even a Time Lord? McGain in Battlefield, we did that stream on Wednesday. Please have a look. He's a Merlin, so therefore is he something different in the future? And Cursor Fenric, he pulled bones from the desert and dead. Do you buy into this as a solution? Because it seems that RTD and Chibnall have. Do we buy into this as a solution?
I don't mind all the hints, like in season 25 and season 26. And I know some elements of what was going to be the master plan found its way into some of the new adventures toward the end, like in Lung Barrow and stuff, when they brought in the looms and everything. I don't mind the hints as long as they don't lock it down into any one single explanation, because then it just becomes up to the audience to dismiss it or create their own kind of headcanon of how it fits without being locked into a single canonical. I mean, for him to say, "Oh, you're more than a Time Lord," that's fine with me, because that's open to interpretation.
It's
I like the
interesting
idea of him going through history and the humans identifying him as something else, for over time, the legend and the myth of this person that came in and dabbled, and then he becomes like Merlin. It kind of like the idea we've seen in the Pyramids of Mars, where they wrote off the Egyptian gods as they were really Martians, but they wrote them off as gods. I like that, but not that he really is, because again, the Time Lord is the renegade. He is a Gallifreyan Time Lord. He's just different from his own people.
Yeah, I thought he was just bored with the Time Lords, all being glorified civil servants. I thought that was
he disliked even the Fifth Doctor says, I left Gallifrey because I was because I was dissatisfied with their society. I need to mend my ways.
Now, it's interesting, though, that we've moved from the Cartmel master plan, which is the Doctor as a sort of god, to the Timeless Child, where he has no memory about anything and is a laboratory rat.
Yeah. Right. Well, I've got one solution, and so I'm going to. And it's over several pages. So as I show you it, can I have panel feedback on what they think, and then we're getting quite close to moving on. Okay. So this is from Divine and Dragon, and he has really gone to town on this. So here we go. His starting point, you can see at the top there, was all the problems with Timeless Children, Tecturian, and all the rest of it. So here we go. To do this, we must revisit elements that were established in previous narratives. So far, Doctor Who has established alternative universes, parallel universes, da. So far, so good, everyone?
Yep.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. Right. My theory will be that there is a resonance or a common vibration felt from these alternative realities in which the most almost literal identical physical representation of events are so in alignment that a sentient being becomes aware of it. In all honesty, most of us have experienced such moments. Of course, if that were the case, such forces would not be enough to make a dent in cosmological overlap, but the Doctor is different. The forces contained within him that allow for regeneration are extreme, and he is a time-space traveller. As seen during the Smith run, he literally leaves a trail wherever he goes through his personal history, so the Doctor has himself weakened the fabric of time. The starting point of the fracture I envision would have to happen during the Capaldi run. A point of division would have to factor in the break between companions when the Doctor was alone. This leaves the break between Heaven Sent, Hellbent, blah, blah, blah. The end point is the moment of bi-generation. As many have suggested, this new Doctor seems emotionally fragile and less capable than ever before. Okay, so far so good, or have we got any questions?
No.
Okay.
Following.
Okay, let's just have a little.
My only question is this going to be on the final?
I mean, look at the detail that's gone here, and I've been talking to Divan and Dragon for ages, and you know, like all of us, he's got a busy life and all the rest of it, but he's really gone into this, and so, you know, I just want us to kind of look at some of the details, tease them apart, explore what's possible to use. So we've got the Doctor's. What have I left? I've left the last line, haven't I? Sorry. The end point is this. It is very possible that this schism leaving the two Doctors has left a crisis that must be resolved as the Doctors are reintegrated to stabilize the timeline. So how would such a story show? It would have to occur as the 15th Doctor begins experiencing increasing moments of deja vu, not necessarily locking him into a loop, but becoming progressively stronger with each experience. His companion, whoever she happens to be, is outside the framework and able to remark on the Doctor's developing metaphysical crisis. There is a potential cosmic collision developing with the Doctor as the anchor, drawing the two realities ever closer. It turns out that the Valiard is the physical manifestation of this crisis. Although the Valiard is a representation of the Doctor's darker sides, the Valiard did not have the ability to fully manifest prior to bi-generation. That moment itself was the catalyst that freed the Valiard into another reality. The Valiard is now in a desperate bid to make himself manifest in any universe. Destroying one reality to exist in another is a form of acceptable collateral damage. The Valiard actually resonates at the same subatomic quantum frequency as the Doctor's universe, so he's naturally attracted to that universe. And well, you can see, I mean, this is a very interesting concept, and people have wanted the Valiard back. Any questions or any thoughts? Because Divan and Dragon's been following us on the thread.
No, it's fascinating.
Divan, you have put in more thought, more passion, and more creativity than some of the showrunners today. You're actually showing heart and soul, and you know, this would be a darn good fan fiction. I mean,
Divining Dragon said in the chat that he teaches
poo-pooing fan fiction, and actually there's been some fan fiction that has been better and showed more heart and soul.
Divining Dragon in the chat said that he teaches creative writing and he has his students plan things out with background like this.
The thing is, would Colin Baker go for it?
One quick comment about the wording that he used in the sentence where it says the Valiard actually resonates at the same subatomic quantum frequency as the Doctor's universe. I thought that's our problem, because RTD is not resonating at the same subatomic quantum frequency as our universe. That right there is the problem.
That's a very good point. That's a very good point.
Well, I mean, what Russell is resonating at is the same frequency of his own arse, which he's just disappearing up.
But it's a very good story. It's a very creative idea, and it's from a fan who understands all the long-term storylines in a way of trying to fix the problem. But it would never actually happen with Russell T Davies. He would just Go on.
I can see how it could, you know, you read all these pages and you're going, oh my gosh, is this too much complexity? You know, we said we don't want too much exposition. But the point is, that's just the explanation, as in the background to writing it, isn't it? So therefore, I can see how the two universes, the Valiard trying to break through, the Doctor becoming weakened, that's just episodes where the Doctor just gradually, incrementally gets worse. And so it becomes a cliffhanger, stuff like that. I mean, the fact is, this is what Russell has to have done before doing his Sutek episodes. He has to have.
But you can have you can have a whole season arc where he starts to get more and more sick.
Yeah.
And he's starting to realize there's a real big problem. and he's starting to realize what he's got to do to fix it, and whether it means, I don't know,
You can't
regenerating with.
do arcs in 8-episode seasons. You just
No.
can't. You don't have enough time.
Yeah.
No. Now, just at that bottom bit, he says, a realization is made by the 14th and 15th Doctors. There must be reintegrated. Somehow the severing of the two into separate beings has weakened the Doctor. Well, two right there. You see, he's thinking of every problem we've got. So I've saved this till last because he is trying to resolve it. The Valiant was manifest in power. Even worse, if both Doctors are killed off at the instigation of the manifested Valiant, there will be no one able to stop the damage the Valiant will do. Just imagine a cosmically successful master and the potential for catastrophe becomes obvious. There is no alternative. The Valiant manifested through cosmic dimensional fracturing of the Doctor's history and was fed by the power released in by generation. Perhaps even the placement of Capaldi in the confession dial as he was one of the instigators of this crisis. Remember, Martha herself had manifested the power of conscious thought to free the 10th Doctor at one time, so there is clearly a precedent. So, the climax of such a story would have the two Doctors using the Valiant's tools to reintegrate themselves into a new 16th Doctor. But the timeline effect goes all the way back to the initial space-time rupture that left a cascade effect. This has the effect of allowing the Doctor to realise that the moment of creating the Valiant has also had the consequential effect of creating a new universe. Get ready, folks. The experiences of each Doctor from Whittaker to Gatwa are real, and the universes in which they operate were real. They existed, and they do resonate in the 16th Doctor's memories. But it is a universe as unreachable as the one Rachael is in. There's a solution to our two-Doctor problem, our bi-generation problem. I've left this to last, so I hope people in the thread have waited, because Divine and Dragon, when we've talked to each other, he knew I said we can't cancel 7 years of Doctor Who. So he's been working on those. Yep, he's worked on those parameters. Now, if you really now think about what he's written, has he solved the bi-generation? And like Rachel said in a text before we started the show, that we should actually say we have copyright to this. Actually, Divine and Dragon has copyright to this, because we don't want Russell Davies to nab that. Divine and Dragon, he should be onto you, because I think that's. Am I getting too excited? Does that solve all our issues that we've been talking about tonight?
Yeah, Divine and Dragon, we want a cut in the royalties, okay?
Yes, please. Yeah, thumbs up from me.
The thing is, again, what it's actually also, I mean, it is really clever, but the other real cleverness about this is that if anyone then comes up with any other canon thing, it can all be put into this.
Yeah.
Can all be sort of like explained, going all the way back. Sort of all the way back to no.
I just think the fact that we can get a moment where the bi-generation has created a problem for a future story, but the future story solves the two-Doctor problem we've got back to 2017. I just think, do you know what? Please, RTD, get in contact with Divine and Dragon. I'll be the conduit. Really, seriously, eat humble pie, work it, make it all popular, and just do it. Because actually, you're not dismissing the Geordie Doctor. You're not dismissing the Shooty Doctor. You are explaining why they're not quite as the other Doctors have been. The bi-generation mess disappears. And do you know what? The reason why we've run this program tonight is we've gone over all the issues that we have problems with, knowing that Divine and Dragon, my good mate there, has served on a platter a way of getting out of this.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So well done. I've just got the dog scratching, so I'm going to just dash for a second. But can anybody see any little problems in what was said there? I'm just going to flash it up again, one example. But has anyone got
I don't think little problems matter, because Doctor Who isn't about having everything completely tied up, and that's why I quite like it, because some of the gaps that it might have will allow other gaps to be tied up. It does enough. It does exactly enough in what you need. Don't worry about the gaps.
Yeah. I mean, it goes on and on and on. I mean, it is really good. After all these universes still, but Sorry, but it is understood the timeline for the Whittaker, Tennant 2 and Gatwa doctors will be forever out of reach. Should 16 reach out to check on the Whittaker Flux universe, for example, it would be like popping a bubble and terminating that reality. I mean, come on, this goes on. This is the gift that keeps giving.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to kind of like studying all of this at length, you know, like after the show, and I can kind of like think about each one of these concepts and break it down. But you know, it's weird that I mean, for the whole Jodie thing, the only thing that needs to be explained, and I think, and we've offered some possible explanations, all of us earlier on, is the timeless children thing. I think that as an era, I think that hers is easiest to keep with all the rest than anything that Russell has done in his return, because that's just, I mean, when you have concepts that are half explained or not explained at all and tossed in for fun, even though they violate canon with no thought about how it fits, that's far more problematic than somebody who made an attempt that, you know, whether you think it came off or didn't come off, that's easier to reconcile than what's going on now.
You see, this is the issue. Divine and Dragon, I know, we've talked about our teaching background. I'm an English teacher. He's teaching creative writing. It's fascinating that us not-wees who are just in normal jobs, not brilliant pay, average pensions, you know, we're just normal people. We're not high up and privileged because of our amazing skills in the media, right? And we know for a fact that there is no master plan written by RTD of 6 pages like Divine and Dragon has just done. And I think that is a disgrace. Because if he's writing at speed, let's be honest, and I will give him credit, when he came back in 2004-5, he did have a master plan, so to speak. He broke down what each episode was doing. We've seen it in the books. We've heard him talk about it. RTD1 was different, wasn't he? But we know for a fact, because the Sutek bit makes no sense, Ruby Sunday being average, therefore, why did Sutek resist killing everybody? Because he was pickled by the fact that this girl didn't know who a man was, who was very ordinary. Well, how many people don't know who their parents are? There's more than one. Why did Sutek just delay everything forever?
Because it wasn't well written. It wasn't well thought out. That's why.
Yeah.
And so Sutek's been on the TARDIS all the time.
Yes.
So Sutek's seen all of the Timeless Child. Why is he not bothered about that?
And I've said this many times before, that the TARDIS gets whacked with a hammer, and Ncuti's TARDIS is the duplicate TARDIS with the jukebox. So did he jump over from the 14th Doctor's TARDIS to the 15th and go off his merry way? Has it been because of that? Or was he duplicated? I don't know.
And when we had the key to time and the TARDIS was taken out of time to meet the White Guardian, wasn't the White Guardian going, hold on a minute, there's a big Sutek on your TARDIS and I really don't want to get the key to time because he might nab it, you know? Or when the TARDIS went into E-space, didn't Sutek think, I want to get off now, this is a boring tiny universe, I want to stay in the big one?
Or when it shrunk in Logopolis and things like that.
Yeah.
Did he sort of fall off it or what?
But see, all this, and I know we all know this, all this shows is that the depth of thought that RTD put into that idea is about 1/4 of a millimeter.
Yes.
Because and he's written, obviously, that he came up more or less with the idea of Sutek coming back 50 years ago.
Yeah, yeah.
And he's done exactly no work more than the 12-year-old did then.
Yeah. And look, I think just to kind of define things, you know, we've said fan fiction. Everyone talks about fan fiction as a kind of pejorative, as a kind of subjective kind of don't know fan fiction. It's fan fiction. We've just got a bit of fan fiction there that actually I'm not dismissing, because it would actually cleverly solve things. So, you know, this is what fans can do. So fan fiction isn't always bad.
Yeah.
You know,
no, and there are lots of examples in stuff like whenever Russell brought back. I mean, to an extent, Blink is fan fiction. To an extent, Family of Blood is fan fiction at the time. because it's people who might be professional writers that write it. Fan fiction isn't bad, but if you just write fan fiction and stick it on the screen, which is what Russell has done, then it's not up to standard. And what this offers is the ability for someone to do the whole set of work and stories setting around that, because this is the solution. This isn't the set of stories, but it's a brilliant solution.
Can I ask you all one thing about, we were talking about show structure and stuff that we omitted to mention, so I'll ask you now. I would actually make a rule now if I'm running Bad Wolf, and I would say no more Dr. Light episodes allowed, because they've become a little bit of a novelty, like a test to prove what a great writer I am. So Blink, which we've mentioned, actually, whether that was a good story or not, I suppose it used the Doctor sufficiently in a funny sort of way, but I have to say, stop this experimentation. It's called Doctor Who. The Doctor should be the centerpiece. We were talking earlier about the diminishing kind of manifestation of the Doctor, and I actually think add everything together. I actually think, as a rule, going forward, if you've only got 8 episodes, 10 episodes, the Doctor has to be central. And I'm sorry, no more Dr. Light episodes. None.
Do something more like Midnight, which would have been considered companion light, as opposed to Doctor Light.
Yeah.
And that kind of intensity as well, because that's intense, that one.
Yeah.
And in terms of Turn Left being a companion piece, yes, if you're saying this is the impact of getting rid of the Doctor, but in that just about works in terms of that. I think if you're doing 8 episodes, there's no chance of it. None.
No.
Yeah, I mean, as you say, it used to be 13 episodes per season or series when it came back. And it's been slowly getting that's only 8 episodes. That's you can't with just 8 episodes. There's not enough. They've got to have a full Doctor episode rather than just like a 2-minute thing.
So we seem to have come to a conclusion, which is we know where the problems are. We've actually had some great help. We've helped each other with some solutions here. I think the fantasy hocus pocus helps. Blah blah blah. But I think Divine and Dragon's been great there. I will send Divine and Dragon's solutions to everybody on the panel, because obviously if this could possibly be a mini series where we really explore some of the solutions and actually kind of really start to look at some of the maybe the problems with it, and maybe some where the solution is clear to us. But that's up in the air. Do the thread want us to do a little mini series where we explore how we can salvage it? Because I don't want to turn into the Boris Johnson version of Doctor Who, where we just said, done, right, we've done that. Yep. We need to look at it.
Quick question for you, Brendan.
Yep.
Do you think that Divining Dragon's amazing outline, let's call it an outline, do you think that the person who wrote the stories that we saw this season would be capable of implementing that?
Well,
I don't at all.
He showed some capability in the first season in 2005. However,
I'm not talking about 2005.
No,
I'm just talking about now, this season.
My suspicion, well, it's more than a suspicion, because we all know how to write. I teach writing just like Divine and Dragon does. What's clearly happened in this season is he has just looked at the arc first. But when, you forgive me, I know it's not much of an arc, but you know what I mean? He thought, I'm triggered. I need to do a Ruby Sunday thing. And so he's quickly started with the Ruby Sunday, and I'll start there with the church. I'll dump a baby there. Then I'll do that. And he's just done it like that. But he's not thought about, hold on a minute, how do I develop the series? How do I make it darker? How do I do this? He's not really done that. What he's done is, like a soap opera writer, he's gone, and so Betty needs to be ill in 2 weeks' time, and then she has the baby on Christmas Eve, and they just kind of make the fixtures of family life, don't they, in a soap opera?
Yeah.
And that's all he's done. But he hasn't thought. I mean, I slag off Star Trek Discovery now, the season when we had the burn. And I thought it was, Michael had the burn. I thought, well, go to a chemist. I was really trying to work out what this whole thing was. But at least it was trying to do a version of a sci-fi concept. Whereas this was, where was the sci-fi concept? Was the sci-fi concept that Sutex sat on a TARDIS? Because Ruby Sunday wasn't a sci-fi concept, was she?
No.
And we
No.
still don't know what the snowing was.
Right.
Yeah, it's not been explained.
Or
And-
why the maestro was afraid of her.
Yeah.
Or why
So-
they couldn't see her in the memory. You know.
Yeah.
tape
Brendan, yeah.
I would
So-
I would tell the BBC and Russell, I would say, guys, there's a reason why the season 25 collection set sold out in a day, and why the Shooty season 1 set will probably be in the remainder section of Amazon for about a year.
Yep, there it is. We did the stream just the other day. Delicious looking set. And the special effects on them. I mean, I was saying with Cinnamon the other day that the special effects for the Happiness Patrol seems to have, I think that's always the weakest visually, and that's been lifted probably.
It has scope now.
Yeah, and I do like that. So do check out our thread there, because we've been honest about it. I don't eulogize. I'm not known for, I'm from the Northeast. We don't eulogize. We nitpick. Obviously, our Doctor Who Detox Hour will be again on this Thursday. So if you are available, do tune in. That seemed to go down well. And we'll get a few more Aussies on, etc. That went down well. The David Tennant debate, the first foray of politics. So I'll ask Rachel in a minute what she's seen while I'm just pressing all these buttons. And of course, Michael, you've been going gambusters. I know you've released another episode on your channel. Do you want to mention that?
Yes, we just reviewed Enemy Mine from 1986, which is a great film which stars Dennis Quaid, which we really enjoyed. And I do an episode once a week, and check me out. My channel is called Coclads, and I'm approaching 165,000 subs, so I'm doing all right.
Wow.
Yeah, you're just a bit ahead, as in you're just. I know. I'm always amazed Mike wants to come on here. I mean, I
love being on here. I do like the debate. I mean, there's some great intelligent conversation. We all love Doctor Who, and I mean, the stuff that you've been sort of like putting up tonight's been really interesting to discuss. So thank you very much for having me on.
So, Mike, tell me what your subs number is again, and I'll just flash this up. And it's so kind of the juxtaposition, so classic.
I think it's about 164,300.
Oh, look, once I hit 1,000, I mean, we're like cousins then.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. Looking forward.
I know it's well done you, but you've been going a long time. I know you've put a lot of effort in.
Yeah, 17 years.
Yeah. Rachel, of course, the queen of the woke. She's ahead of me as well. I'm amazed any of these talk to me. So I know, Tamo, you said you're putting a stream out on something that I'll have to delay for a few years.
You can go ahead and put it out as well if you would like to. Yes, I'm putting out that stuff on RTD and what he said about the Schalke Doctor. And I also had one that was released today, which was a review of Spearhead from Space, which was a request from my followers in the poll that I put out. And believe me, it's one of the scariest ones for me to actually watch. So it was quite something to put that out. And if you'd like to go and watch that, would be great. Chat about it. Don't shout about it.
There she is.
Don't shout.
Just don't mention mannequins to her.
No.
Oh no.
So
thanks, Gary. Thanks.
We normally do our midweek special. Actually, our midweek show this last week did really well. And that was on Battlefield and the cringe moments in Doctor Who, which really went down well. I used it again in the Doctor Detox, and people were telling me about. But the Merca came up. The Ingrid Pitt high karate attack on the Merca. So actually this Wednesday, folks, please tune in because we're doing Warriors of the Deep.
Yeah, thanks, chat. Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Hey, still better than some of the stuff we're seeing now.
Yes. I don't agree with us picking stories where we're all going to agree that it's amazing. I think I need to pick ones where we're going to have a bit of debate, a bit of fun. So Warriors of the Deep this Wednesday, please tune in, and there'll be another item. What will it be this time? Moments of cringe. That was last week. We've had the best master stories, the best unit stories. We've dabbled with lots of things. So what will it be next? So please tune in. Thanks, panel. I think we've now solved the Doctor Who problem. There you go.
Yeah.
That was a worthwhile 2 hours.
Hey!
Well done.
Yay!
So long,
Sorted.
RTD.
Yeah, bye-bye. Bye-bye, RTD.
We maintain copyright, RTD. We maintain
That's
copyright.
right.
Yes,
Yeah.
Divining Dragon. Can
Don't
I be
let the
your
door
agent?
hit you.
Actually, I'm going to be Divining Dragon's agent. There you go. That's it. My pension is secured. There we go. Right then, everybody, thank you. Have a good night. Obviously, we will duck and dive between football fixtures and everything, but we will see you very soon. Wednesday is going to be uploaded and will be our discussion of Warriors of the Deep. So please tune in. Right, everybody. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Thank you, Hugh.
All right.
I'm lucky Hugh's here. Remember, he's a globetrotter now. I'm lucky to have Rachel
Bye. Thank you.
because she's going to stream in a minute. You watch, she'll be streaming again. Michelle, good to see you.
See you.
We might see you Tuesday. You never know. Gary, thank
Yes,
you
sir.
again.
Thank you for having me.
Right, there we go. See you again, folks. Bye.
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 Should keep it on people. No, there you go. If I keep doing that, she can't scream. There you go.
Let's come.
There's Gary. This is his morning therapy. You will give us a good old. Like and subscribe.